Tea milk, 2 sugars. Tea milk, 2 sugars. Tea milk, 2 sugars.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Cyrus. I'm the co-founder of Tea Milk 2 Sugars, and today we're going to share with you something that many of you tackle with, but you might not share with other people. The questions that you Google about how to raise a resilient child. What do I mean by a resilient child? We want to have and we want to raise really tough children, so they are prepared for really tough moments in life. So we're going to find out what is it that parents are tackling with.
I've lost your sound.
Trilogy, the famous trilogy that she's created along with we're gonna ask Paulette to start. Paulette, can you hear me? Okay, I'll wait for Paulette to join. Can you hear me, Paulette?
Now I can. Yeah, I lost you there. You disappeared.
No problem. I'm magic. What can I say? There you go. Paulette, floor is yours. Please go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we'll dive right into it.
So my name is Paulette Hallam. I'm a ex-corporate girly. I got to the glass ceiling, as they say. Retired, and then through both my own ill health and my son's mental health, I decided to retire very early, and then I retrained as a therapist. And I specialized in children, autism, ADHD, ADD, all the sort of neurotype issues that we talk about all the time. And anything where you say, oh, it's ND, it can mean 1,000 things. The spectrum is so vast. So we're going to tackle some questions today that, yeah, they're ND type questions, but they would apply to every child. Every child. Back to you, Cyrus.
Tea milk, 2 sugars. Tea milk, 2 sugars. Tea milk, 2 sugars.
Thank you so much for joining Tea Milk 2 Sugars. So we did a lot of research and came up with 10 most Googled questions that parents are asking themselves and asking Google to find a solution for, right? So in a way, these are problems. Fear is a compass. You're not supposed to have fear-free children, because if they are fear-free, then they won't know when to stop. And brave children rather than fear-free children, because fear-free is not good at all. Now, you might be wondering what is the difference between the two. So we will find the answers that Paulette is going to provide us with. Grateful, Paulette, for joining us for another episode of Tea Milk 2 Sugars. You are indeed an asset to this show, and without you, we wouldn't have this show at all. And I'm really glad I found you on LinkedIn a couple of years ago, and I'm really glad you're lending your expertise to this show. Thank you. The first question is, here's the first one, guys. I let Paulette read it. Please go ahead, Paulette.
Okay, my son cries every time he loses. Am I supposed to comfort him, or am I making him less resilient? And the answer to that question is complex, but I will give you what I consider to be the basics. Comforting him is a natural response, right? That's what we would do. That's quite maternal or paternal. Showing empathy and support helps him feel safe and will also make him feel like he can speak about it. You're not making him feel resilient, rather than instead of making him feel a failure, and therefore that makes him feel bad, or instead of him feeling, oh, I'm so resilient, I don't give a monkey, what you're trying to do is kind of hit down the middle. And a straight line down the middle, anyone knows who plays golf, it's not always easy. So what we're saying is we've got to build a foundation of emotional security so that he feels that he can develop resilience over time. So it's not like he's got to go to the resilience shop and buy a big old packet of resilience. He will develop resilience, okay? So resilience is learning to cope with setbacks, failures, difficulties. And as an adult, we always get told failing is learning, right? And I think that's what we really need to kind of remember when we're parents. We were told it's okay to fail, or fall, as the saying goes. But I think the answer is when you're gently comforting your child, you sort of say, look, I understand that it hurts to not win and not to get, to a great position. However, there's always the opportunity to do it again. You can learn, you have the chance to practice. You can perhaps do a bit of running before the event so that you're a bit faster, or if you've got to throw something, throw a tennis ball or throw a cricket ball at sports day, and you can never throw it in a straight line, perhaps you could practice in the garden. Or if they always shout at you because you never catch the ball when you're playing rounders or cricket or something, why not play catch in the garden, or where in the park, so that you start to become better at it. I used to shout to my son, "This one's for England. If you don't catch it, we're gonna lose the World Cup." And he'd be like, "Oh no!" And he'd be running and trying. But that's the way you play at building resilience. Hope that makes sense. Back to you, Cyrus. I think Cyrus is there. Back to you. I'll carry on then, shall I? So the other thing, if I was to ask, is there another way of explaining? My son would always come last, second from last, third, fourth, right at the end. 300 children running the cross country. He would always come in right at the end, but he didn't ever want to be last. Last was just pushing it too far. He didn't mind being third from last or fourth from last. And when they still put the ribbon up for every child who ran through. And if you saw the photograph of Ben coming through third from last, you think it was his Chariots of Fire moment. He runs with his arms out and the facial expression is he's won, right? And that's resilient. Back to you, Cyrus. don't know if Cyrus is having a problem. We were having some IT
Thank you so much,
issues.
Paulette.
Oh, there you are. You're there.
Yeah, I got disconnected from the internet. Sorry. So, if you're a parent and you just joined the show, we are talking about what parents Google most about raising resilient children. So the next one, so that was the first one. So we covered the first one. Let's go to the second one. The second one is my daughter refuses to try new things because she's terrified of failing. How do I help her? Without forcing her, because you don't want to be too forceful. You just want to be more diplomatic about things, right? So, Paulette, how would you respond to that
So
as
I'm going
as a parent, from a parent's perspective?
to. I am a parent, exactly, as are you. So the thing that I would say is, if you imagine you have a child, let's say she's trying to make bread, okay, and every time she makes bread, it's so hard, it's not edible, right? And the only people that get to try it are the birds, and the birds even break their beaks, right? But what you're going to do is praise the process. So, oh my gosh, you know, you needed that so well. You know, talk about all the things that she's done well in the process. Even if the bread ended up breaking the beaks of the birds, the process worked. Okay. So you praise along the way, and that way they're less scared of it going wrong. So what about the poor birds? Well, we won't worry about them. They'll be all right, because when it rains, it will soften. It will be okay. But make it funny, okay? Okay, so we could eat this one, but you know what? I bet the next one will be much better. So what you've done is you've praised the process all the way along and not about the end result. And that gives the child the chance to go, oh, so I can do this, and this. And even if that doesn't happen, it doesn't matter. And that's when children start to be a bit more willing to step outside their comfort zone and try something new. So I think that, you know, trying what I would call the healthy model of feeling along the way. So you sort of do it in baby steps, you break it down. You can always ask what I call one of the magic questions, which would be, you know, help her to evaluate her nerves. So by saying something like, are you feeling nervous about doing this? And if they say, yeah, because it's dangerous, or I'm a bit scared of doing the high jump because every time I do it, I run straight into the pole, or I hurt myself, or everyone laughs because I go underneath it, not over it. So what you say to her is, okay, but are you having a go at it? Yeah. Well, that's what it's all about. We all do things that don't work out well. And so I think that's the answer. Process, praise the process is what I would say. Back to you.
Thank you so much. So praise the process. If you're a parent and you're watching this show, please remember, there is this thing in your child's head called belief system. With every action and reaction, that belief system gets written. Soon, it's going to turn into a massive, thick book, right? Perhaps 4 or 5 volumes, right? A really, really massive book. So in that belief system, all of the software, it's like a computer, right? All of those software are being stored for every situation in life. He or she, I'm talking about your child, he or she will draw on some sort of experience, or uses some sort of goes through some sort of click and run kind of software, right? So click and run. So most of the things that people do, like over 90% of the things that we do, is subconscious in terms of the responses that we provide to the actions that happen around us, right? The responses to the stimuli, every stimulus around us is automated. It's subconscious. We don't think about it. Those come from that thick and massive book that I just referred to, if you will, right? So every time your child cries, your child is asking for solutions. They cry because they feel desperate. They're desperate because the chapter they want in that book is missing. It hasn't been written yet, and you are that chapter, right? You are putting some of your experiences in that book. So later on, when your child is an adult, that book will come in handy. So please remember, you're not just solving that problem there and then. When your child is crying, you're not just solving that problem there and then. You are also providing a chapter to the book of the belief system. Please remember that. The next one is number 3. My child seems scared of everything. Is this normal stage? Is this a normal stage, or should I be worried? Over to you, Paulette.
Thank you. Well, I'll tell you now, fears are probably my favorite subject. And fear and anxiety are like brother and sister. They live really close together. And the thing about fears are they overwhelm you. So what looks like something that you are coping with, or something that you are handling, or any situation where you think you're going to be okay, and then something out of the norm, out of the ordinary happens. I mean, I'm still scared witless of spiders. You know, I'm a grown up. I'm an old grown up, and I still like a spider. Right? I can't get in the bath as a spider because somebody has to come and get rid of the spider. So fears are completely normal. They are completely irrational. Most of them are irrational. The fear of fire, or the fear of drowning, or the fear of things like that you can say are genuinely a scary thing, you can absolutely understand. But what you have to realize is that some fears are completely irrational. I've got a dreadful hair blow. I've got a fan blowing hair in my face. So as kids learn to live in our world, they will pick up on your fears. And I'm going to go into that in a bit more detail in a moment. But for example, my fear of spiders, I was scared I was going to pass on to my son. As it happens, I did. Now he's a great 6'2" lump. He's quite prepared to deal with the spider. But for a long time as a child, he would be we'd both be up on the sofa, standing there going, help, you know. Now we have a spider catcher, little machine, clacks it up, sorted. So the thing about fears you have to understand is they cause a physical symptom in our body. And you've all heard of the 3 Fs, you know, the fright, flight, freeze. Though that is a absolute massive rush. And that rush of cortisol that comes shooting into your body says, there's a problem. We're all going to die. The world's coming to an end. It's a big problem. You know, it's like the worst kind of news broadcast screaming out the television at you. There's a problem, right? When the reality is, as I've said before, we have big fish and we have little fish. And you have big fish problems and you have little fish problems. We often, with fear, give a big fish reaction to a little fish problem, because fears are generally irrational. They're not real. They're not really going to. Yes, there might be a fly in your soup, but you know what? it really wouldn't kill you. I send it back by all means, but you could have actually eaten it and not died. But fair play to you. So what you have to understand is when a fear is something like going to school, or it's a fear of not wanting to go to a certain person's house, or their anxiety is becoming heightened over the fact that we've bought a new house and I'm really scared about it. And all of those issues will happen to a person at different levels, different childs, from infants to preschoolers to school age, right the way up to teens and tweens and then into adulthood. You can have exactly the same fear. So I think the answer is simple. Your daughter might refuse. Sorry, I'm looking at a different question. Your child seems scared of everything. The answer is they are. They genuinely are. And it's not abnormal. It's just their reaction. And quite often, another child in the class will say, cheese is really terrible and bad and dangerous and really bad. And the child's always eaten cheese, loves cheese, and suddenly won't eat cheese. And that's because once somebody in the classroom said that cheese was bad for them. So what I'm trying to say is that child might be, lactose intolerant, and that's why they go, oh, cheese is the spawn of the devil. Now your child's walking around going, oh, cheese is the spawn of the devil, I can't possibly eat it. So just understand that most fears are irrational. And as Cyrus mentioned before, so much of this lives in the subconscious mind, and it's about beating the fear, trying to understand that that fear is, it's a little fish fear. It doesn't require a big fish reaction. Does that make sense?
It does actually, absolutely. Thank you.
Good.
So back to the that Paulette was making. If your daughter is, if your child is, not just daughter, if your daughter is scared of failing, also it's worth paying attention to whether you have been hard on them when they've failed before, because it is an evolutionary thing. We want to be a part of a group. We want to be accepted, right? Because 300,000 years ago, when we used to live in caves, if we weren't accepted, we would be doomed. We would be shunned from the group, and we wouldn't be a part of the hunter-gatherers society that humans were a part of, and the chances of our survival would reduce significantly. So I would say it's an innate kind of fear, right? It's fine. But just like Paulette said earlier, praise the inclusion in the process, okay? Not their level of success, because they're still children and still learning. When you were at their age, perhaps you were going through the same trial and error kind of process. And failing is a part of trial and error. And by the way, the more they fail, the better, because if you leave that trial and error and failing for adult age, their life will be significantly harder than just crying for 5 minutes and getting over with things, right? So it is a good thing that you're getting such a feedback from your child. If your child trusts you enough to come to you crying, etc., etc., you're a parent. That is always the first stop and the last stop for a child, right? It's like one of those city center bus links, right? They always start from the same place, they end up at the same place. Good morning, mom and dad, and then good night, good evening, mom and dad, until they go to bed, right? So you are you are the provider, and you are the defense mechanism. You are everything to that child, right? So that child is still forming mentally, physically, neurologically, you name it. They are still developing, right? So it's natural for them to fail and come to and cry. But if it's everything, you need to find out what the root cause might be. So it's okay for them to be scared as long as the that fear that they are experiencing is not shrinking their world, is not shrinking their opportunities, because later on they will suffer with this thing called that missing out on opportunities, right? So if their fears become larger than their appetite to try new opportunities, there will be a significant decline in their resilience and eventually in their level of success in life, right? So, and in order to be a part of the solution and not part of the problem, whenever they fail and they're crying, please don't sit down with them and cry. Please listen to them, and if you want to sympathize with them, yeah, it's fine. If you want to empathize with them, it's even better. But don't give them the message. Don't let the message be you failed and that's a bad thing, or you failed. Don't learn from it and move on. As long as they learn from that failure, so they won't make the same mistake again, it's fine. Just let them vent out to you. Why not? So the next one we want to cover.
Something there, Cyrus. Just before you go on, you just sparked something that I must quickly mention. Report cards, or when children bring home their grades for the month, or their grades for their exams or the test results or whatever. Never compare one child to another. Never say, oh, well, when this child was that age, they were getting these grades or whatever. Each child is individual. And if you're not careful, if you create that us and or them and us type feeling that one child becomes in competition with another, then you will not have a child that will come to you with problems. You will have a child that will actually shrink because they aren't good enough. They're not meeting the standard that was set by the older child that did so well, blah, 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 blah. So just understand that is something to think about, Never compare. Allow your children to be themselves. They're individuals, and don't treat them as, oh, when this one was doing that, it was doing that. Just never do that, because it creates huge problems in the future, because those children don't forget that. It goes on, and then you won't have good sibling relationships. So just bear that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Paulette. We covered number 3.
Yeah.
Didn't we?
Yeah, we done 3.
Scared of everything. All right. So, and I just in order to close on this one, sometimes the fear your child is expressing is lack of knowledge. We are scared of things we don't know. We call them phobias. So let's go to number 4. Whenever my child gets upset, my instinct is to protect them. How do I know when I'm helping and when I'm making the fear worse? When is it that you're helping? When is it that you're making it worse? Right? So, Paulette, please go ahead.
Yeah, this is a very difficult one. I'll explain why it's difficult as I go through. Co-regulating is basically what we're talking about here. So you're trying to stay physically and emotionally calm. Your steady presence helps them settle, and that will settle their nervous system. Validating before problem solving is absolutely vital. So in other words, you sit them down and you acknowledge their emotions. So you might say something like, I really understood what happened there, and I understand that you're really scared right now, but when they feel heard and seen and validated, they suddenly feel better equipped to handle. It's like you listened, you saw, you really understood, and now I feel like I can speak up and I can explain how I'm feeling. So a child, gets upset sometimes because of things that you don't know, things that have happened, things that have been said that you're not aware of. And they're going round in this loop in their head. And what you're trying to do when they actually come to you is second guess what's going on in that loop, because you're not privy to it, because I've not told you. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is, by encouraging gradual exposure of whatever it is, just asking sort of inquiring questions without being aggressive, just, or poking the bear, as I say, just gently encourage the child to expose whatever it is that's bothering them. You're supporting them and you're taking very small and manipulative and manageable steps to facing whatever it is that is making them get so upset so quickly. And I'll give you a quick example of bullying. Bullying is a really good example of this, where your child has been called a name and then all the other children have caught onto it and they're all now calling her that name, and now that builds. So she now feels like the whole school, and it might only be 5 girls out of the whole class, but in her head, the whole school are calling her that name. And so what you need to understand is, how do you regulate that fear? By saying, but actually it's only those silly girls, isn't it? And you know what? They're not very nice and they're not really part of your friendship group. And maybe they're just being nasty because they can be. Sometimes people are just nasty. And what we have to do is understand that we're not nasty and we just stay away from them. We don't let them upset us. Don't let them spoil your day. If they come to you and they call you that name, go, bloop, and they'll laugh because you made the funny noise. And you go, bloop, and you, what does that bloop mean? You blew it away, right? You literally, bloop, blew it away. Doesn't matter. And as soon as you're turning that problem into such a small, tiny little thing that you can just throw away, suddenly it's like, oh yeah, I can do that. I can cope with that. And it's really important that we understand the things that upset kids sometimes can be so trivial, but to us, they seem really trivial, but to them, they seem ginormous. Make sense?
Yes, it does actually. And whenever you're asking yourself, am I making it better or making it worse? When they're scared of something, when they're crying, when they're stressed, you need to ask yourself. And I would like to invite you to focus on this little point I'm going to make here as well, in addition to what Paulette just mentioned. So always ask yourself, if you wonder if you're making it better or worse, ask yourself, am I protecting my child from a great deal of stress he or she is going through, or am I protecting protecting him or her against growth? If you're isolating your child from growth and doing helicopter parenting, as they call it, some people, for the lack of better phrase, we're going to use that, helicopter parenting. So you are protecting your child from growth, because some of them occasionally bad things that happens to them, around them, with them. As an example, if your child misses the bus, sometimes, teenagers, kids, they feel like it's the end of the world. They miss the bus. Okay, the world stops there and then, right? Just explain to them. Just remain calm. When you remain calm, they will their fears subside, right? The fears get lessened and lessened by the minute. Why? Because what you do and what you say affect your child on different levels, because what you do is what they learn. What you say is what they will dismiss sometimes, most of the time, because what you say is just words, right? How you react to things becomes second nature in them, right? Because as they say, monkey see, monkey do, right? So people's brains are pattern recognition machines, right? So the patterns that you demonstrate are much, much more effective than the words that you share with your child, right? So do as I do as I say. Which one do you think they will listen to? I'll let you be the judge of that. So we're gonna go
Just
to the
one
next
thing,
one. We're running
actually,
out of time.
Cyrus, just very quickly. Just handle that challenge as calmly as you can, because if you don't, they won't come to you. Just bear that in mind. If you act big fish, they're not going to come to you the next time. So the calmer you are, the more chance you've got of having that relationship with your child, that they will talk to you about all these things. Back to you, my love.
In other words, don't lose your temper over something that can be fixed, right? So because you're teaching them to lose their temper over small things, right? And remember, most of the time your child is on a screen. If your child has been born within the past 10 to 15 years, remember, your child is a screen child, right? So screen addicted child. So most of the training and teaching comes from the screen. Heaven knows from where. And you can't control that. But that limited amount of time that your child is exposed to you, and you're exposed to a child, use that to your advantage and your child's advantage. Real life experiences are still more important than the screen influence, but we can't deny how effective those screens are, right? It could be a PlayStation, it could be an Xbox, it could be that screen could be a phone most of the time, it could be an iPad, it could be any screen really, right? So we're gonna go for a commercial break, and we'll come back in a few seconds.
Give me tea, give me tea, give me lots of tea. My new favorite is a box of tea. Cups of tea, pots of tea, give me lots of tea. My new favorite is a box of tea. Give me tea, give me tea, give me a box of tea. Can I please have a cup of a box of tea? Give me tea, give me tea, give me lots of tea. My new favorite is a box of tea. Cups of tea, pots of tea, give me lots of tea. My new favorite is a box of tea. Give me tea, give me tea, give me a box of tea. Can I please have a cup of a box of tea?
Tea milk to sugars. Tea milk to sugars. Tea milk to sugars.
If you are a parent and you've been watching the show up to this point, I am grateful. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. You could be spending your time anywhere, but you are spending your time with us, and I'm grateful. So, why is it that this show is beneficial to you guys? Is simply because you can either go through trial and error and try different things with your child, and only hope your strategies will work. We call that spray and pray. Okay, so you spray some paint and then you pray that it will work, right? But also, another way, which is a little bit more scientific, is using the experiences and learning the science behind it. And that's the reason why we've brought Paulette Hallam to you guys. So, all right, Paulette, the next one is number 6, if I'm not mistaken. I've
5.
noticed my child. Are we on 5?
5.
Oh yeah. My child is always asking, "Are you sure everything's going to be okay?" Should I keep reassuring them, or is there a better way to build their confidence? Are you sure everything's going to be okay, Paulette? Let's see. Please
No,
go ahead. Paulette.
I don't think you can give that kind of assurance because we don't know what's coming around the corner. And because we don't know, it's very hard to say, oh, yeah, everything's going to be great. It's fine, whatever. I think the answer is that you can only talk about the things that you can actually fix and the things that you are involved with. So, if they're saying things to you like, I've watched the news, ask them what they've seen. Don't start going, oh, which bit about the war here or the war there or the bombing here or that person that died. No. What you do is you ask them what they know. You find out first what it is that they're asking you about. Where did they hear it? Was it in the playground? Was someone talking about it? Did they walk in when the news was on? Did the news come on in the middle of something they were watching? Or why is this information suddenly bothering them? Because it wasn't bothering them before. And I think that's the most important thing. Ask lots of open-ended questions like, where did you see it? What do you know? Who told you all about this? Or things like that. Not in an aggressive way, just in a very questioning, friendly, gentle, inquisitive way. And then when you get to the point where you're saying to your child, okay, we understand now that, there's anxiety. We understand that you're worried. But the key is it's to try and say to them, you can't say that everything in the world is going to be perfect. What you can say is that our world at this moment in time is fine. Our world is okay. Your school is fine. Your friends at school are okay. Everybody's, those things that we can control, we control. And what you're trying to do is highlight that the world is vast. The world is vast. I used to say, look at us we used to have a little globe, and I used to spin the globe and say, just look at the size of us. And we'd be this little sort of pinprick of a country. And I'd say, see, right? How can we affect everybody in the world? We can't. And we also can't help everybody in the world. What we can do is do our best. And that used to be my answer to many a problem, like when things happened in Haiti and there was, the horrendous tsunamis and things. My son was incredibly aware of all of this. In fact, he organised a disco for UNICEF, but we won't go into that today. The main point is here that what you're doing is you're validating their concern, but you're trying to find out what it is their concern is. Is their concern that we're about to go to war? Is there concern that dad's going to have to put on an army uniform? Is there concern that perhaps dad used to be in the army and is still a reservist and might have to go back? Or, try and understand what part of all of this is triggering the fear. And then once you've got to that, you're in a position to satisfy them that they're safe and they're okay. And yes, there are some people that are having a really difficult time. And around the world, there's lots of people having a horrible time. but we can't do anything about it at the moment. I wish we could, but we can't. And it's like there's a saying in as a therapist, we don't have a magic wand that fixes everything, and we don't have a magic wand that can fix the world. But what we can do is try and work on the now, the here, the now, what's going on in your vicinity, your home, your life with your family, your village, your town. Try and sort of keep it much more minimalized as opposed to world, country, etc. That's how I'd handle it.
Thank
Over
you
to
so
you, sir.
much. And when it comes to, thank you so much. When it comes to giving your child confidence, it's good to give your child confidence, but that's not where the focus needs to remain, right? So otherwise, your child as an adult later on will create disasters. Okay, I'm going to give you examples, don't worry. So when the COVID was happening, like early days of the COVID phenomenon, I'm not going to go through whether it was a hoax, it wasn't a hoax, I don't know. We're not going to focus on that bit. But there was a disaster, and there was mass hysteria about the whole thing. Something really, really grabbed my attention, which is like all countries were trying to find solutions. England on this end, the United States on the other end of the world, Germany, Italy, Spain, everyone was panicking, right? And one of the world leaders suggested, he's very confident, by the way, right? Suggested that injecting yourselves with bleach would be a solution. Imagine that. Now, I know, Paulette, I know. Imagine that. Okay, so mothers, please raise your kids right. Okay, fathers, please raise your kids right. Okay, so this proves to us the background doesn't, the financial background doesn't really matter. You could come from really, really wealthy backgrounds, and your child could still be very, very dense as an adult when they grow up. So focus on competence, not confidence. Confidence is very important, but so if you are competent but you don't have confidence, you can find ways around it. But if you are just confident and there is no competence, that's a recipe for disaster. You can imagine some people ended up losing their life, and some people ended up losing their healthy health over injecting bleach into their own bodies in the hopes it would cure COVID or prevent COVID, right? So it's not all about confidence. That's the point I was trying to make. So the next one is number 6. I've noticed my child avoids anything that makes them uncomfortable. Should I let them avoid this? Should I let them avoid it to keep them happy, or should I encourage them to face it? Sounds simple, this question, but there is a lot to unpack. However, because we are in a rush, Paulette, in 2 minutes, if possible, please.
In 2 minutes, okay. Cross country. I'm just going to go there. Back to cross country. Every kid hated cross country except the really good runners. So the kids' parents who knew the kids hated cross country, guess what? Those children didn't go to school that day. Their children were off sick. Their children got a note. I made my son go, even though I knew he would be second, third, or fourth from last. He ran that horrible cross country because there are always going to be things that you're going to have to do that you don't like in life. And it's a lesson that you need to teach your children. Don't give them the day off because it's something they don't like. They have to face things when they're adults. And if you keep mollycoddling them, so they think that absolutely, I don't have to do this, so somebody will write me a note. But that won't happen when you're at work. When you say, actually, I don't want to do that, they go, well, what are you going to get mum to write you a note? That's not how it works. All right. So I think the first thing to say is validate, understand that you've got to create an approach to the problem where you say to them, actually, avoidance is not the right way to support you here. I'm going to praise the heck out of you and maybe even bribe you, maybe take you straight after cross country for a hot chocolate, or give them a piece of cake or something that will make them really happy, as a sort of prize for doing it, and tell them how proud you are of them. But don't not let them feel uncomfortable. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Paulette. And parents, please always remember, the only thing that gives your the only thing that comfort zone gives your child is comfort. And comfort alone is not going to help them grow, because growth almost always happens after some sort of discomfort happens, right? Sometimes, in order to get to the truth, you have to go through the discomfort of asking questions and making people feel uncomfortable, right? So there are people in this world who always stay home because the outside world is uncomfortable. It makes them feel uncomfortable, right? So don't let your child turn into one of those people who use avoidance as a tactic, because it's often the case when you avoid a problem today, you still have to go through it later, so that's a waste of time. And also, you still have to go through the discomfort, because you still have to learn what's beyond and behind that discomfort, right? So it's a waste of time, waste of energy, and why putting it off till later, right? At least right now, you can be with them, shoulder to shoulder, and help them, right? You can be side. You can find solutions with.
I've lost your sound.
Yeah, that's the one. So I struggle with anxiety myself. Could I be passing my fears onto my child without even realizing it? Ooh, Paulette. Please go ahead. This is a really
1,000%.
good one.
Yeah, this is 1,000% easy answer. So you don't realize it, but you are modeling. You are the only thing your child sees all the time. And so your anxieties, and I'm going to give you a very, very quick example. A parent who is scared of dogs, maybe because they were bitten when they were younger or whatever. Every time that parent sees a dog, they'll walk across the road. They'll get the child to walk with them across the road, and say, "Why do we cross the road when we see a dog? We don't like dogs. Like, dogs bite." Okay, fine. Now that child fears dogs almost more than you do, because you know what it feels like to be bitten by a dog, but your child might think it feels like a shark biting them. So they're now going to escalate that fear. So you don't just pass it on, you pass it on with that. Do you remember we spoke earlier on about the child will catastrophize a problem. The child will take big fish, small fish. So in this situation, you are making it into a big fish problem. That child will now be scared of dogs for the rest of its life until one day somebody says, oh no, the dog's really friendly, you'll be fine. And they're like, no, it's fine. I just don't. And well, you're going to come in the house or you're not going to go in the house? You know, if you're coming in my house, please come in. You know, you got to make a decision. And they'll go in the house, they'll stroke the dog and they'll be like, oh my gosh, not all dogs bite, you know? And I think that's an example of overprotection. It's passing on your fear, and it's a really good way to try and be succinct, which is what I'm trying to be at the moment. Using anxious language like vicious. Dogs are vicious, they bite. You know, that is pretty catastrophizing. Be careful, be careful of this, that, and the other. You know, it's vicarious conditioning of children, and you create alarm systems that immediately go, trigger, my parents told me not to do that. I'm going to go into an panic worry moments, and that might even end up being a panic attack, or it could even be into, if not a panic attack, certainly a fear attack, because of what you've passed on. So I hope that makes sense in the most succinct way I could do it.
Absolutely, Paulette. Absolutely. So, and thank you. So, please remember, if your child is in a state of panic and is experiencing anxiety, and you have anxiety yourself, please remember, I'm not going to sugarcoat it because I'm not a baker. I don't sugarcoat things. It's a realistic podcast, right? So it's a heart to heart. So I'm not going to shy away from telling the truth. Neither is Paulette. So we're gonna say it like it is, right? Tell it like it is. If you have anxiety, there is a chance your child will get anxiety as well. Why? Simply because when something triggering happens, there's a chance it will disrupt you from your baseline behavior. So from how you normally act and react, right? So if a triggering event triggers you, which is natural, your child will learn. That's a learned behavior, right? Your child will learn and will do the same. Have no doubt about it, please. Okay? However, if you keep a cool head and when something bad happens, despite your anxiety, you just tell yourself what I'm going to tell you now. I have seen 90-year-old people. They survived and they got to the age of 90. Surely they went through anxiety and the anxiety didn't kill them. They survived, so will I. So will my child. Use that logic. And keep using that logic, right? So look at elderly people, like 80, 90, 100-year-old people, right? Surely they have gone through the scenarios that you're going through now. Right? So if they survived it, so will you. So if you're going through anxiety and you always reaction from a place of fear, yes, your child will do the same thing. They will copy you. They will emulate exactly everything you do predominantly and also say in the adult life, right? That's how generational. That's one of the ways in which generational trauma gets passed on down to the next generation, right? So we're gonna go to the next one, which is number 8. Okay, how do I teach my child to cope with failure, disappointment, and rejection without crushing their confidence? this is such a pivotal question, right? So if you're a parent and you just joined the show, don't worry. You will find the recording of the show on LinkedIn, Facebook, and on YouTube. Okay, you can rewind and watch it later as well. If you've been watching this show, we have been live for an hour now. I am grateful for spending your time with us. Thank you so much for caring about your child enough to spend time learning how to do it, right? And remember, if you're a parent, you're already doing a fantastic job, okay? Don't try to be perfect. Just try to be a parent, okay? Being a parent and being perfect are two different things, right? Your child at some point will find out that perfection is fakery, right? You don't want to be labeled that way in their head, right? Just don't be the fake parent, okay? Be a real one. Show them it is okay to go through difficult things, but just teach them coping mechanisms instead of teaching them how to remain perfect, right? LinkedIn, that's where me and Paulette are super active on, right? LinkedIn is full of people who try to be, full of adult individuals who try to be perfect. They never ever help other people. That's one of the reasons why people go to LinkedIn, to help other people and get paid for it, right? But these adults, because they try to be perfect, they try to look and sound perfect, they never ever do anything of significance. Why? Because they're too busy being perfect. And that is a disease. Trying to sound or look perfect. It's just awful, okay? And ruins an adult's and a child's life, okay? Teach them it's okay to be not perfect. We are not perfect, okay? And we're not designed to be perfect. So, Paulette, you're the expert.
So
What is your take on
this
this
is a
question?
big one. Yeah, this I got 3-page answers on this. I'm like, yeah, succinct, he says.
I'm not surprised.
Teaching children to handle setbacks without crushing their confidence is all about building resilience, right? So we talked about resilience as something that it grows, right? So if you imagine, the way I like to look at it is building blocks. Okay, if you imagine building blocks. So the key to reframing the experience as being normal or temporary or solvable kind of makes life feel rather easier to reflect upon. So in other words, if you're trying to say to a child, for example, you spoke about COVID, is there a chance there could be another COVID? Lots of children ask this question all the time. Do you think there'll be another COVID? That's because it's talked about, right? So it's talked about. They hear about another disease, or they hear about there's some people been sick on a boat. Does that mean we're all going to catch it? It's going to be another COVID. So you have to understand that children catastrophize everything. And I'm not just talking kids like 3, 4, 5. I'm talking up to teenagers and even beyond. So the most important thing is to always normalize big emotions. Don't sort of say, look, you're overreacting, because that will just make them feel rejected, and they'll feel disappointed. They'll feel that they can't come to you and talk, and they will resist the urge to perhaps come to you and say something in the future. But if you say, look, let's just talk about this because it might not be such a big deal. Let's just try and understand what's going on here. Why don't we validate the feeling that you're having and understand what it is you're saying, rather than have a big screaming, shouting, you think you're disappointed in you for whatever reason, or naming the emotion also can really help. So you can say, What is it that is worrying you? What is it that you need to be problem solving? Because what we're talking about here is coping with failure is actually coping with problem solving. Disappointment and rejection is problem solving. So what you're trying to do is model solutions to problem solving. So focus on the effort, not the outcome. Focus on praising their hard work and not worrying so much about solving the problem when they're younger. As they get older, you start to say, okay, so you didn't get the grade you wanted, but did they explain why? Did you understand what you could do differently? Is there something that you can see where you could have made an improvement? Great, fabulous. And they're like looking at you going, what do you mean? Great, fabulous. I got a B. I thought you wanted me to get an A. But yeah, but you know how to get an A next time. So well done. Because that's a learning, right? So modeling healthy coping mechanisms about handling one's mistakes. Let them see you make mistakes. Let them see you be a recipe of disaster. We talked about the bad bread making. Let them see your cooking go wrong. Let them hear you get frustrated when something doesn't go right on the computer, or you can't do something, or the printer won't work, and you've turned it on and off and done all the technical help things that you can do, and you're like pulling your hair out. Let them see that, but then let them see you go, right, I've unplugged it and I've plugged it back in again. It's still not working. I wonder if I ought to check to see if there's any ink in it or any paper, right? And you're problem solving, you're showing them, just do me a favor and check there's any paper in it. And they say, no, mum, there's no paper in it. Well, that'll be the problem then. So you failed, it didn't print, they put the paper in, now it works. Guess what? Between the two of you, you have fixed the problem. Therefore, you don't feel like you are a failure. You don't feel like you are disappointed. And you certainly don't feel like you rejection, because you actually were able to handle the problem in a way that meant you included them in your own disasters, right? So when then they have a problem, instead of going straight to, I can't do it, it's all awful and terrible, they might get up and check the printer. They might actually go to the printer and turn it off and on and actually check to see if it's got paper in it, and understand that they've fixed the problem themselves because they mirrored what you did. So coping mechanisms are about what I call prompt collaborative problem solving. That was an exact example. The printer failing is an exact example of, it's disappointing that this has happened. How do I fix it? Bosh, work together, solution provided. And I think it's the same thing about this grade B and the grade A, or the grade D and the grade C. I remember my son coming home and saying, and you'll love this, I've got good news and bad news. My son Cyrus knows, and it's really funny. He's hilarious. I've got good news and bad news. So I said, okay, well, give me the bad news first. And he said, okay, well, the bad news is I'm in the football team called the D squad. I said, oh, okay. Well, whatever, you're not a sporty lad, so that's not to be surprised, really, is it? I said, what's the good news then? He said, I'm the captain. I was like, wow, now that's an example of where I have taught him, okay, that, okay, he's in the D squad, but he's still a captain. So what he's done is worked out that being the captain of the D squad is better than not being the captain of the D squad. So what you've done is you've given them the confidence to see that it's okay not to be in the A squad, to be in the D squad, but have the confidence to say, but I'm the captain. Does that make sense? Has that helped?
It does, actually. Thank you. Now, Paulette, I have good news and I have bad news. Which one do you want to hear first?
Go on, what squad are you in? Let's
I
have
have
the
good news. I have bad news. Good news. Okay, so the good news is there is no bad news.
Hey,
Yeah. Yes. But the bad
I
news
know.
is I'm not going to tell you the good news. So, I'm only joking. So,
Okay.
back to back to the main point, guys. Remember, you found this show because the algorithm on the platform that you're on has already figured out you are looking for solutions. That's one of the reasons why the algorithm has pushed this podcast to you. Okay, we're not superstitious. Okay, it's not the universe. It's not this and that. It's just the Google's. It's just the Google searches you've been conducting. So, and that's how search engines talk to cookies. Cookies talk to websites, and the owners of the website, which is LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, push this product, this podcast to you guys. Now, you're here anyway, regardless of the reasons, right? You might as well share with us and make our show better. Why does it make the show better? Because nobody knows about parenting more than a parent does, right? You guys are parents, and if you are listening, again, I'm going to remind you, you are doing a fantastic job taking care of your child. That being a parent is a great deal of responsibility. Okay, it's a thankless job. I know it. You know it. Paulette knows it. Everyone knows it. So don't expect a thank you. The biggest thank you is the success your child is going to achieve. But why did I say this? Let's do a social experiment, right? What is the opposite of failure? What is the opposite of failure? So you haven't told me, right? You haven't told, but something in your head, based on what they've taught you in school, your brain told you
The opposite of failure is success.
no, that's not the truth. That's definitely not the truth. Failure is data. How can data be the opposite of success? Failure is indicators of how things have gone wrong, how you didn't achieve what you were after, what you were searching for, what you were trying to get, right? So, in the past, you've been in situations where you tried and tried and tried, getting your driving license, finding your wife, your husband, your boyfriend, your girlfriend. Some people try more than once because they're resilient, right? Getting the degree that you've got, right? Getting the job that you want and you got, right? There are times when you failed to get your driving license or achieving the job that you applied for, right? What did you do? Did you stay jobless forever? Did you stay without a driving license forever? I hope that's not the case. What message are you giving to the next generation? What message are you sending them? So failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is data, is information, right? When your child fails, explain to them. Let's go through the reasons why you didn't get what you were after, right? Perhaps what they're trying to achieve is illegal. I don't know. So if my ideal, if one of my ideals is to rob a bank, should my parents help me and achieve that? No. So that's that is excessive, obviously. I'm exaggerating here, but you need to sit down and find out: is it worth jeopardizing your time, your energy, and focusing your time and energy on it, or is it not? Sometimes what your child is trying to achieve is something they've seen online, right? So sometimes what your child is trying to achieve is a very dangerous maneuver they have learned on TikTok. We know parents who've lost their children because of what their child learned on TikTok, right? So it's not always healthy for them to achieve what they're after. You need to keep that in mind as well. But rejection and disappointment is info, right? Is information. Don't scare them of failure. Don't tell them failure is the opposite of success is the opposite of failure. Don't tell them that. That's what schools and what universities teach our children, which is unhealthy, to say the least. Be a better source of resilience, source of inspiration for your child. Okay. Sometimes failure should be celebrated. You know, people who invented airplanes didn't invent it overnight. So Wright brothers and their friends, they would go to the to a massive field every day, carrying five of everything, six of everything, like bumpers, tires, wings, you name it, and they would have it on them. Why? Because they knew that they were going to crash 5 times that day, right? So this is about resilience. This episode is about resilience, right? Being scared, it's okay. Just teach them. Be afraid. It's fine. I'll still do it. Yeah, still do it. It's okay to be scared. Number 9.
Okay, how can I tell my child is genuinely becoming more resilient, or is they're just getting better at hiding their fears? Oh, these questions are not like 2-second questions to
What a
answer.
question.
True
Mhm.
resilience looks like open communication. It looks like adaptability, so being able to pivot as quickly as you need to, an ongoing willingness to try new things. And if they are simply hiding their fears, you might notice subtle physical cues. They maybe have a bit of rigid behavior about a certain thing, or a sudden loss of confidence about a certain club after school, or they were in the chess competition and they were doing really well, and then they got knocked out, and now they never want to play chess again. That is not resilience. That is just throwing your toys out the pram, right? That is just a reaction of, I'm grumpy, I'm having a meltdown, I'm going to act like a kid, I'm going to be a 5-year-old for 5 minutes, and in a day or two's time, I'll pick the chessboard back up again and want to play chess. So, you have to give your child some degree of belief. Okay, you have to give them that they will cope. All right. So if they are hiding things behind your back, you've got to look for key differences. And the only way you know a key difference is if you know their behavior. And the only way you know their behavior is if you've been watching them and studying them. And I'm assuming most people have, because you wouldn't be listening to this podcast if you didn't have an active interest in your child. So genuinely resilient, they would communicate their limits. They would understand their feeling of anxiety or anxiousness. They would ask for a break, or they'd ask for a coping tool from you. They would, rather than push themselves and have a meltdown, they'll actually say, "Can I have a break? I can't cope for a minute." And it might be that Dad's got them holding bits of wood so they can screw a wardrobe together. Dad thinks they're as strong as you are, as he is, rather. They're only 12 and he's a grown adult, and the kid's arms are absolutely screamingly hurting, but he doesn't want to admit it, because if he admits it, that makes him weak. Doesn't want to look weak in front of Dad. Do you see? So he could just say, "Can I just take 5 minutes?" And Dad will say, "Yeah, I'll just put a box down that end, no problem." Easy. If the communication is there, then it will always work. So it's all about the genuine resilience comes from communication. So embrace mistakes and allow them to adapt easily. So, in other words, they must be able to be flexible. So, say, for example, teacher A is their favorite teacher, and they're really looking forward to going in and seeing teacher A today because it's their favorite teacher. And guess what? Teacher A is off sick. And they send in the grumpiest, miserablest person who's come in, who's not normally a primary school young teacher. She's usually teaching year 6, and she's suddenly got this like whole class of 5-year-olds, and she's like pulling her hair out, screaming and shouting, ranting and raving. Most of the kids are in tears. You know, you have to teach a child to go, oh, okay, Miss X isn't in today. It's okay. This person's not very nice, but Miss X will be back as soon as she's well again. You know, if they can get to the stage where they can think like that, as young as sort of 5 and 6, can you imagine how they're thinking by the time they're 8, 9, 10, 11, going into their teenage years where they really come across issues? If you've already taught them the emotional intelligence at the younger age, then that makes the older age handling so much easier. So hiding fears, they will show some sort of physical regression. What do I mean by that? I mean that a hidden fear will manifest as an unexplained stomachache, a headache, sleeping issues, or returning to younger self behaviors like being a bit more clingy, or maybe even wetting the bed or something. It's like that. And that would be a way of them exhibiting out of control behavior, right? That means that they are feeling that they're trying to hide their fear, but what they're actually doing is putting it on full show, right? So they think they're really clever and they're hiding it really well, and actually they've just written it right across the sky, you know, in huge white letters saying, "I'm in trouble, please help." So the body language can be very tense. So everything okay? Yep, fine, fine. You know, that kind of reaction. Or shrugging of the shoulders, or, you know, just a non-committal kind of response. Or it could be the other way, which is like a hypervigilance. So say, for example, they are being bullied at school, or something's not good's going down. They could be like this, like all the time, like looking around, almost like PTSD, you'd say, or CPTSD, or something like that, where they're really overly anxious and they're looking around the room all the time, or looking at the door, or wondering if the doorbell's going to ring, or, you know, you're noticing this real, like, strange behavior. That strange behavior comes from that body language being so tense, because they cannot get out of this hypervigilance. And hypervigilance is an absolute, like, sort of sensory type thing. It's a look, a feel, a touch. It could even be clothing, it can be noise. A bang will make them jump out their skin, whereas it wouldn't normally not. If you just touch them on the shoulder, you might see them jump. All these things should be little bells going off in your head, going, something's going on and I need to get to the bottom of it, right? So
Mhm.
I think also the other one is people pleasing. So if you see a child saying to you, "Can I take an extra chocolate cake today?" or "Am I allowed to take an extra bar of so in?" or "Can I have an extra banana cake in my lunchbox today?" Why? "Oh, well, because Tom likes banana bread." Well, yeah, well, Tom can bring his own banana bread. Well, no, Tom's mum doesn't buy banana bread. So what happens to your banana bread then? Well, Tom has my banana bread most days. You found out the information you were looking for, right? So it's about, you become a sort of people pleaser, and I hate that expression, but it's so true, that you sort of don't want to disappoint others, and you don't want everyone to think that you are less than or not good enough. So you'll get them that banana bread, come what may, because you don't want that person to come at you or give you a hard time. The way that I would just say very quickly, supporting them, normalize all emotions, regardless of whether you agree with them or not. Normalize them. It's perfectly okay to feel sad, scared, frustrated, angry, all of those things. It's perfectly normal. Build coping skills by helping them practice maybe some breathing exercises, or the understanding that they've got to stop with the worry. Stop the worry and then look at that and try and work it out, work out a solution. Focus on the effort again, not the outcome, and always praise them for something, whatever it is, even if it's about the banana bread. I think that's really kind of you to give Tom your banana bread, you know, even though you know that he's given him the bread because he's probably frightened not to. Make it seem like it's a nice thing or a kind thing, and then you're normalizing the behavior and not actually saying, I'll get after that Tom's parent, tell them to buy some damn banana bread, you know. So I think that's what I think on that one. It's really quite important to always let children understand they're doing nothing wrong. It's just that you're trying to help them do it better. Is that okay? Over to you, Cyrus.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, Paulette, I was gonna say, I feel lucky to have you as a friend, Paulette, to be honest. And your husband is a very lucky man to have you as a wife, and your son is such a lucky man to have you as a mother. And thank you so much for everything that you're adding to our LinkedIn community, and thank you so much for adding everything you're adding and everything you're adding to our parents watching this show and listening to this show. Tea, milk, two sugars. Always welcomes you, and the effort that you put in for betterment of parents. Thank you, Paula. So also I wanted to working with you is a pleasure, Paula. Thank you. I was going to also add, as a parent, Paulette's job or my job is not to remove the hurdles. One of the questions I growing up, one of the questions I asked one of my teachers was, in hurdling, in track and field Olympic Games, I watched it on TV, and it made me wonder. As a kid, it made me wonder: isn't it easier to remove those hurdles so people can just run? That was one of my questions as a child, right? So that's not how life works, though. That's not how that sports works either. It is, in an ideal world, parents would have removed all of the frictions and most of the growth, as some parents do anyway. If you don't get the reps in, the repetitions in, there's no point in you going to the gym, right? So growth happens when you use the dumbbells and use the bars and increase the number of repetitions that you get in, right? That's when growth happens. So life without friction and troubles and problems doesn't exist. Okay. So and how do you know if your child is making progress or they're putting the show on, right? Are they pretending or are they more resilient? How can you tell? The answer, in my view, is, in addition to what Paulette provided, the answers Paulette provided, in my view, just observe. If your child always compare your child. If you have to compare your child to the your child's past, right? Compare them to last year. Don't compare them to their cousin or their classmates or neighbor's child, right? That is not a really wise comparison, right? So apples and oranges, eh? So apples and pears, as they say. So just find out how long it takes a child compared to last year or the year before, how long it takes a child to go through difficulty and go back to baseline, which is normal behavior, how they normally behave. So, like 2 years ago, if it is progress, if 2 years ago it took them a week to get over a problem, and now it takes them 2 days, right? It's progress, right? So how long it takes them to go back to baseline from difficulty and trouble that they're going through, right? So if it takes them a smaller amount of time, fewer hours, fewer days, fewer weeks, that means your child is making progress. They're not pretending. They have actually become more resilient. The type of questions they ask you, why it's always me? That means your child is now resilient. Yeah. Why does it have to be me all the time? Some parents ask that question. Address that problem in your child's childhood years. Otherwise, they will turn into adults who will always say, why me? Why does it have to be me? Right. And when they do things, anything in life, they feel like everything turns into trial. Everything turns into a problem. Everything turns into a really difficult exam, right? Or difficulty. If you don't build resilience. And resilience is not having children who are not afraid. Resilience is having a child who gets afraid, but they shrug their shoulders and just say, okay, yeah, so what? Just move on and do it anyway. Be scared, be afraid. It's fine. It's natural human behavior to be scared. It's fine. But still do it. The last one, guys, the last question. I've loved this episode so far, Paulette. How do you feel?
Yeah, very good. Very, very good.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think
Paulette,
it'll
please go
really
ahead.
help. What conversations actually help my child open up and trust me more? Which ones accidentally build walls between us? So I
It's a $1
think,
million question, isn't it?
oh, it's a horrible question. The reason this is a difficult question again is because the glasses are coming off of this one. What we're really saying is, if you've built a relationship with your child, and I'm talking about a child that trusts you, a child that believes in you, you've never let that child down, you've been important in that child's life, you've been present in that child's life, they will come and they will trust you, because what happens is they will not go to panic. They will go to, can I talk to you about something? Is it okay if I come and talk to you about something? Those kinds of conversations only happen when the doors are open. You know, when I was in business, I always used to say, my door's always open to the team. If you've got a problem, my door's always open, right? And I think that what I would always say is, in order for you to grow, come with a problem by all means, but could you please come with a couple of solutions too? And they'd look at me and go, how is that the door's always open? All right. Now, what I meant was, the door's always open, but don't just come in here expecting me to get the magic wand out and fix the problem, right? You come to me with a problem, you come to me with a couple of solutions. I might not like your solutions. We might work on something together, or it might be a mixture of your two plus something I can add to it. So the answer is that even as an adult, as you grow older, you will always have issues. You're always going to have problems. The most important thing to do is have an open door policy. And that means that you should always be able to speak to your child, right? My son knows he can call day or night, morning, noon, night, anytime he wants, middle of the night. If there was a problem, just call us. And he has, where there's been something that's happened and he wasn't prepared for it, right? The most important thing I would say is give your child the tools to cope. What do I mean by that? I mean, allow your child the opportunity to actually say to themselves, I understand I have a problem. I understand I need to fix it. Do you think this is a good idea? Do you think this might be a good solution? And that's what you've done. Fabulous. You come to me with a problem, you come to me with a solution, right? That is amazing. That means you've won. Because what you've done is you've created a resilient child, you've created a child that's problem solving for itself, and you've created a child that is thinking for itself. That child will go all the way because it's already winning, because it's already able to see beyond the problem itself. It's looking at the solution. It's trying to solve the problems. And what I think we don't often realize is that with all these kinds of problems is that if, and I don't mean this disrespectfully to everybody, but people who have a very low frustration or low tolerance of issues. So, for example, shouty parents, parents that are very vocal, parents that are very opinionated, parents that are very in your face with a problem, those parents are going to bring up kids that are a lot less likely to be problem solvers. They're going to bring kids up that are more likely to be shells. They're going to be the quiet ones, the ones that don't put the head above the parapet for fear of getting it a bit knocked off or whatever. They try and make themselves small. They become quite introverted. They become more of a bystander than a voice. And that's a sad thing to admit, but it's true. So don't let your child become a bystander. Always have an open door policy. Always have you can talk to me about anything. When I say anything, I mean anything. Doesn't matter what it is. If you need someone to talk to, you've always got your parents. And that would make a child feel like they can walk on the moon because they've got that backing. And that's all that they need. All they need to know is they've got backing. And that backing gives them like this backbone that's so strong that they could literally, Mr. Atlantis, they could hold up the world, That's how they would feel. Is that right? Mr. Atlas, not Atlantis, Atlas. Atlas held up the world, didn't he? That's how you're going to
Atlas,
make a child feel.
yeah.
Atlas, yeah, Atlas, not Atlantis is in the water, I think. Yeah, Atlas. He stands there and he holds the world up. That's how you're making your child feel, that they could literally hold the world up. That would be the most amazing result of a show like this, is that you've been able to build that relationship with your child, that they feel like they can literally hold up the world and they've not shrunk and become just a bystander, because it's easier to be quiet than to actually raise your voice, because the house is shouty, noisy house and lots of opinions and it's too scary. So always try and keep it calm, always try and keep it open, and the dialogue must be on their terms. Meet them where they're at, not where you're at. So don't come at them with your degrees in political sciences when they're just asking you where Ukraine is. They don't need the Ukraine, where it started, how it is, how the war, that they just asked where it was on the map. That's all they needed. So just be aware of how much information you throw at children, because sometimes they only need this much and you're giving them the full encyclopedia. Back to you, Cyrus.
Thank you. Paulette, when I was a kid, 1 year, the final exams questions had been leaked, and I volunteered to take a table from one class to another, and so the whole school went home, and I volunteered to help carrying a table from one classroom to another for the end of the year celebrations, because every year when we finished, we would have a brief celebration for the end of the year kind of party, right? So the headmaster told me and the other three kids, there was four of us, and he said to us, you know, what made you stay behind and help? So we all said the same thing. We said we like the party, and we want to be a part of it. We want to help. And he said to us, let me teach you a lesson. So at this point, he was such a serious guy as well. At this point, I was shivering in my boots. I was like, so we probably did something and we are in trouble. Let me teach you a lesson. It's such a menacing kind of way of stringing your words together and giving like 9-year-old kids a kind of scare, right? So he said to us, the question's been leaked. I don't want you to be amongst those kids who rely on those questions that have been leaked. Tonight, I'm not gonna sleep. And can you see those teachers? They're not gonna go home. We're all gonna change the questions. That's the gift I'm gonna give you for helping me. You didn't have to help me, but you helped me move. That table was the lightest table you could ever imagine. I'm not sure why he did what he did, but probably he was teaching us a lesson, which he did. And for as long as I'm alive, I carry that lesson with me, and I'm grateful to him for being the way that he was. So he was the headmaster of that school I was in for 4 years, and that is what really helped me be a better person than I could become. Better person. I'm not perfect by any stretch of imagination. Far from it. I have more flaws than you can count. But that taught me a big lesson. When you help other people, they will help you back when you least expect it. Okay? So I was not one of those kids who relied on those leaked questions. And by the way, I knew full well that questions were leaked. And I was, after school, I would be on my way to that kid's home, that kid's house who had the questions. Yes, I was that kid, right? I was one of those kids. I would go after the leaked questions because I wanted to be perfect. Well, that headmaster saved my backside from imminent failure, right? So the next day, he had this smirk on his face, and apart from me and the other 3 kids, nobody else knew what that meant. So thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Tea, Milk, 2 Sugars. We call it Tea, Milk, 2 Sugars because we have a cup of tea, and over a cup of tea, we discuss what really matters to the society. I'm gonna play something for you guys. This is one of my friends who's got a really successful show. His name is Omar, and is from the United States. Can you see that? Is he on the screen now, Paulette?
Yes.
Yes, excellent. So let's play this. This is a message from Omar. He is the creator of a show called Zoom Party, and party spells Pardy. He's creative, very creative. Check this out, guys.
Hello, everybody. My name is Omar, host of Zoom Party, and the very little of them you are watching. Hello, everybody. My name is Omar, host of Zoom Party, and the very little of them you are watching. Tea, milk, and 2 sugars.
That was
Hello, everybody. My name is Omar, host of Zoom Party, and the very little of them you
that
are.
is Omar, the creator of Zoom Party. He's such a creative guy. YouTube him, Google him. You won't regret it. So now it's time for us to talk about 3 very important books, 3 life-changing books that I'm gonna put on the screen in a few moments. Is it on the screen, Paulette?
No. Not yet. No. Yes.
No, it's not on the screen.
Well, one of them anyway.
Is it? Yes. Okay. So, yes. So, Jack and Walter series. Have a good look, guys. Jack and Walter is a trilogy, 3 books, right? These books help parents explain the things they want to explain in children's language, children up to the age of 12, 13, right? And in the Banterless Breakfast Mystery. The other one is Jack and Walter in New School Niggles. And the last one is Jack and Walter in New House Nerves. Will there be monsters under my bed? I'll let Paulette explain about the books. She's the co-creator of the books along with Charlotte Moorman. And by the way, you know you're famous when people Google your name on Amazon. And this is a bestseller we're talking about, guys, by the way. So all you need to do is just go to Amazon and search Paulette Hallam's name, and the books would come up. Otherwise, you can just type Jack and Walter. You can also go to jackandwalter.com. Please go ahead, Paulette.
Thank you. So I'll just give you a quick just look for that. I'm always looking for the camera. I never know where it is. Where are you, camera? Have I got it yet? No. There. Yep. Nope. Nearly. If I put it over my face, we know we've definitely got it. There we go. There we go. Right. So there we are. So this is Jack and Walter in the Banterless Breakfast Mystery. This is a book all about bereavement, but it's done in a really gentle, retrospective way. But it teaches children that it's okay to be sad, but it's also okay to be happy again. And it's a real roller coaster of emotions. But I think that every single person who's read it has said, wow, I really now understand how my child felt, and also how my mother would have felt when she lost her husband. And it's a really interesting way that people have come to me and spoken about what it's done for them as a family. The next one is New House Nerves.
No, please bear with me. Please bear with me for a second.
Sure.
Paulette. So Jack and Walter in the Banterless Breakfast Mystery. The way the book looks. So the next one, is it the green one or is it
the green one? The green one.
Paulette.
Green one's next because Jack moves house. So that's the first one. Yep. The Banterless Breakfast Mystery.
Yep.
Yep. And then the second one is the green one, which is Jack and Walter in the It's called Jack and Water in New House Nerves. So what happens is grandma moves in with them, and apparently there's not enough room to swing a cat. I'm not sure that's allowed to be said anymore, but that's what you say. It's full of old sayings and funny little GPisms, they call them. But the nice thing about it is it's a real family. It's not a family of otters. It's not a family of seals or fish or dogs or cats. These are real people with real emotions. And I think that's really important for children to be able to relate to both the characters of the family and also to Jack and Walter as well. By the way, Walter is actually Jack's conscious mind, and Jack is the subconscious mind. So Walter is the one that's always going, no, Jack, I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think GP, who's moping because Grandad Star died, throwing her a party is not a great idea, right? So in New House Nerves, he's the one that's petrified now. He's the one that doesn't want to be in this room with these great big daisies all over the walls that look like faces. And when the lights go off, the white of the flowers look really scary. And then there's scratching at the window. And what Walter does is calm him down and say, listen, it's probably just, you know, a tree on the window. If we go and have a look and we see if it's a branch or something, and they, you know, get out of bed and they go and check it. And when he says, do you think there could be monsters under my bed? And Walter says, well, it will be a bit difficult because we're lying on a mattress, you know, we've got a blow up mattress. And he's sort of, there's lots of humor in it, but it kind of hits all the notes. Children that read it on their own find it very funny and laugh out loud. Parents who read it with the children say they have learned as much from it as the kids did. So I think they're all about emotional intelligence and giving your child the best possible chance they've got of coping. So school is the next one. He then changes. He moves house, and then of course when you move house,
I'm sorry,
what
Paulette.
happens?
Sorry, Paulette. I'm sorry for interrupting. I was going to say, I'd like to remind everyone that the proceeds of these books goes straight to homeless charities and children's charities. And these 3 books are not just books; they are the backbone of a charity. So, if you want to help the charity, you can buy the books, and we will donate them. You can donate directly yourself to GoFundMe that Paulette is going to share on the next episode, or you can just purchase the books and gift them yourselves. Please go ahead. Sorry for interrupting.
Not at all, no. So if there's a local school to you and they haven't got the books, then please buy them, put them in the school libraries. Schools do not have the funds for these sorts of things at the moment. So unless I'm donating them, which I'm doing my best at, but it's a hard task when there's so many schools. So once he's moved house, then he has to start a new school, and he really doesn't want to do that. He is terrified. It's got full-blown fear, anxiety, you know, his tummy's turning upside down. He doesn't know what to do with himself. And, you know, it doesn't matter how many times people tell him he's going to be okay. He is like so scared of what if I can't find the toilets? What if I don't make any friends? What if nobody likes me? What if? And all those what ifs become so big, they're terrifying. And to a child, they blow those. So that catastrophizing word again, that's what they do to those fears. So Jack and Water in New School Niggles is a great book for any transition. It doesn't have to be a new school. It can be a new class. It can be a new teacher. It could just be going from year 4, 5, or 6. And that's enough to terrify them. Or going from the first year at school. You can read the book with them when they're joining school, and it can be with them throughout all those transitions. So you buy it for a child at 4 years, 5 years old, and then they've got it right the way through to the 11 or 12. and they will keep picking it up and reading it, because every time they read it, they'll get something else from it. And that's been told to me by so many psychiatrists, psychologists, and counselors and therapists, because I work with all of them. And the book, I'm very proud to say, is in many therapist recommendation lists. And the thing about them, as Cyrus said, every single penny goes back into them. So they either get donated as books, again, so we buy authors' copies and donate them to schools, to charities all over the world. We've got books in Uganda, we've got books in Belize, we've got books all over the States, books all over the UK. But also the book of Newhouse Nerves goes into Comfort Cases, which is the charity for children who are going into foster care or moving around the care system. And so this book, Newhouse Nerves, couldn't be more suited to that. And it goes into those bags. And so that makes me feel really wonderful inside to know that those children feel that they're not on their own. They've got their Jack and Water book, and it gives them a sense of it's going to be okay. So they were written with heart, and I think that's what everybody can see and feel. The sort of thing that we stand by, what we always say, is what would Walter do? And now what would Walter do is really about, don't panic, don't make a rash decision. What would Walter do? Walter would do X, Y, and Z, right? Walter would say, calm down. And we've got a thing that Cyrus and I came up with, because Walter is actually a spud. It's a bag in the shape of a spud. So we came up with spud being quite a really good way of helping you and children understand. So spud, S-P-U-D, which is Walter. So S stands for stop, right? So stop. Whatever it is that's going on, it's panicking and whatever, just stop. And then what you're asking them to then do is to work out what is the pressure, what is the panic, what is going on, what's making me feel like this. And then as soon as that thought comes in, you're trying to understand it. Why am I feeling like that? What is it that's suddenly thrown me into this complete spiral? And then you say, deep breathe. And what would Walter do is 4. Spud, S-P-U-D, is 4. And it's all about box breathing. In for 4, out for 4. So we've built everything around the idea of 4s. So what would Walter do is 4. Spud is 4. So it's box breathing that you can teach any child to do. And that's breathe in for 4, breathe out for 4. So if I'm just going to demonstrate very quickly. So you breathe in for 4 and then out for 4. And in that time, you're regulating. You're regulating everything that's suddenly become deregulated. Oxygen suddenly is going into your mind, into your brain, allowing yourself to have a bit of a clearer thought process. And then you'll be able to handle whatever comes next. And if you've taught them to problem solve, hopefully what comes next is the problem solve. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Paulette. You guys were with us for 2 hours, almost 2 hours. Thank you so much for spending your valuable time with us. I hope you learned. I certainly did. Please write to us and tell us how we can be better, how we can make the show better. And please share our show on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and wherever you find it, to help other parents as well. And please definitely buy the books that Paulette just explained about, and help the charity that she's representing. Because let's not forget, you're fantastic parents, and you're always there for your child. But not all children have a fantastic parent like you. So you can't be a parent to other children, but you can contribute and be there for them how you can. Okay, if how you can is donating a few dollars, a few pounds, please do it. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Tea Milk Two Sugars. It's always a pleasure to be with you guys. See you in the next one.